Let's try not to blow out the mic this time, because if we do, we have to re-record again, and this video's gonna be even later than it has to be. Oh shit, we're rolling? So here's the thing. I love the works of Jim Henson. I know I'm not in the minority there, but he truly is the type of person who only comes around once every generation. An incredibly talented visionary, someone who just thinks differently from everyone else. Many of his works have gone down as classics, The Muppets, The Dark Crystal, and so on. However, of all his works, my absolute favorite is something that isn't talked about as much, that being
The Storyteller.
The Storyteller is a 1987 TV series created by Jim Henson, which aired on the old NBC TV series The Jim Henson Hour. Its premise is simple, retelling old and obscure European folk tales. The series was a critical darling, but unfortunately it just did not get a lot of viewers, leading to a series being cancelled after only 9 episodes. And by God, that is such an incredible shame. It's even more of a shame that people don't really talk about this show all that much. So I say, screw it. If no one else is going to give this show credit it deserves, I'll be the one to do it. So strap in, lads and ladettes, as we're going to talk about every single episode in the show. So for starters, with this being an anthology series, there is, like many, a through line for most of the series, starring 2 characters. One being this little dog, voiced by Brian Henson, and the other being the incredibly charming storyteller being played by the late John Hurt. This man just exudes grandfather energy, and it's a wonderful thing to watch sometimes.
And there was another wedding all over, and we were both invited. And I told the best story there is to tell, a story which begins in hello and ends in goodbye. And for a gift, she gave me a shoe worn to nothing. And here it is.
Honestly, 2 of them have good back and forths, and they have some very smile-worthy moments.
What's in your bag? I can smell biscuits.
Imagination.
Let me see.
Certainly not. No, there are important things in this bag. And besides, I need those biscuits for my story.
Well, tell your story, then we can eat them.
Every episode starts with the 2 of them curling up in a nice chair by a warm fire and just sort of playing off each other before transitioning into the story. Yeah, it's not the most stellar or deep writing, honestly it's very simple, but it still gives off the same vibe as a fairy tale or folklore, so it actually works out quite well. And it's also really charming, which I think honestly is the best word for this show. Okay, so the first episode is The Soldier in Death, an old Russian tale. By the way, a fun game to play is to try and see if these stories evolved or influenced other more famous stories. Here, give it a try, see what you can do by the end. Once upon a time, there was a soldier, and due to the fact that countries hating their veterans has been around even back then, he only gets given 3 biscuits after leaving for home. He meets a homeless guy playing a fiddle and does this, which in ancient Russian is sign language for hello. He gives the homeless guy his biscuit, and the homeless guy's like, well, thanks, now I'm gonna put a spell on you or something, so you whistle really good. After a bit, he comes across another homeless guy who's playing a drum. The soldier did a bit of a jig, but apparently he fucking sucks at dancing.
And the soldier stood and whistled his ruby whistle, and did a little jig and his weary boots, a stumble and a hopping. And then he swaps a second biscuit. And now look at it.
Okay, so now I'm just convinced that homeless Russian guys are wizards. Finally, he comes across a 3rd wizard, and he, does some cool magic trick with a card. A magic trick so cool that the soldier decides to give him the last piece of food he has.
And the soldier held out his last dried biscuit and broke it in 2. But it didn't feel good, did it, dearies, to give the old boy less than the others, so he gave him both halves.
So Wizard's like, thanks man, here, have my magic deck of cards that will let you win every game you play. Oh, also here, have this magic sack that literally sucks in anything you tell it to get into it. So the next day he goes up to a river and tests this. He gets a bunch of ducks and uses that as payment to stay at an inn for a night.
This is 3 geese I trapped yesterday. I want one for my supper. If you'll cook it for me and give me a bed, you can have the other 2 for your trouble.
I like a nice bird.
Hey, wait, soldier, you fool! That's a non-taxable transaction. The IRS will be on your ass any moment. Okay, so the town he rests up in has a castle that's full of demons and treasure. So he just walks on in and sits down.
We have a visitor, a guest, and he's whistling. That's a nice whistle.
Oh my god, look at this puppetry, I love it! We'll talk more about this as we go on, but this show is genuinely Jim Henson's best work on practical effects, even better than The Dark Crystal, and I do not regret saying that. The actors do a pretty good job acting with them, too.
So, what shall we play for?
His soul, his whistle, his teeth. I collect teeth.
Fair enough.
Anyway, so using his lucky deck of cards, the soldier wins all of the demon's gold, and he orders them into a sack and then begins viciously beating them until they all agree to leave. Except one, which he takes as a slave. Flash forward a few years, the guy's still rich and he has a son who's dying. The soldier thinks, well, if God's not gonna do anything about this, might as well call upon the powers of Satan.
This is my good wife, by the way, and this is my devil.
The little demon servant goes and gets some glass cup which tells you how close someone is to dying and how to save them.
I see a small creature.
That's death, Excellency. Where does he stand?
At my son's feet.
Ah, good. He will recover. It's when he comes to the head you must worry. Now, sprinkle some of the water from the glass on your child.
Later in life, the soldier is dying and he uses the glass to see death. Thinking quickly, he traps death in his sack and bada bing bada boom, no one dies anymore. But it turns out that's kinda shit, cause people still age and get injured and whatnot.
Looking down from his window, he sees his courtyard full of poor souls wandering. Old scrags of folk barely held together. They were waiting for death's release, and it would not come. And the soldier could not bear their sorrow.
So, he releases death from his sack, but since death is scared of him now, he won't take him to the afterlife. Since he messed with all those demons, they won't let him into hell, and since he captured death and tortured so many people with old age and fatal diseases for years, St. Peter won't let him into heaven.
He turned and walked slowly back to Earth. And for all I know, he wanders still.
For a first episode, it does its job fairly well. It's not the best episode of the series, but it is a fun little story, with a hard-to-accept but still important message about death being just a part of life. The effects are good, though not yet to the level they'll reach in later episodes. Just you wait. All around, a fine beginning for the show. The next episode is Fear Not, an old German folktale. Fear Not is a young lad who doesn't fear anything. Anything at all. And this is because he is so stupid, he literally does not understand fear. Therefore, he is the bravest man of all time due to sheer stupidity.
I'll go in the morning.
The morning's no use. Go now.
I would, but the dark comes and I don't like the forest. It's all shadows. There's trolls in there and dragons.
And me go. I don't mind shadows. I never saw a dragon.
The only thing he's actually good at is playing a fiddle, which he does for the girl he loves, despite literally not even knowing her name. Which was the style in fairy tales. So one day, Fear Not's dad is like, "Son, you suck. Here, have 40 shillings. Go out into the world and learn literally anything so that you're at least somewhat less terrible." So Fear Not sets off on a quest to learn what fear is, and almost gets robbed by the first person he meets.
Slit a hair clean and do.
That's marvellous.
Slit a throat without touching the sides.
That's a good knife, then.
Certainly is, and will do for you, young man, unless you part with your bag of shillings.
I can't do that, for I must learn what fear is. And I'm not frightened of you, Mr. Mackay. You're a friend.
So the guy's already like, okay, fuck this kid, I'm just gonna kill him. And sends him down to a pond where they lay a monster. Some freaky magic shit starts happening, but instead of being afraid, he just grabs his fiddle, starts a playing, and then, oh, look at this boy. Okay, we're gonna talk about this effect for a moment. Look at this costume. Not only does it have a really cool design with glowy bits and catfish whiskers, not only is it really well articulated and even has blinking eyes, not only does the actor in the costume give a fantastic physical performance, but also most of the time the costume is on screen, it's in water, which is notoriously a bitch with costumes. And yet, would you believe this still isn't the most impressive thing on the show? So anyways, Fear Not charms the beast with his music and convinces him to leave to go to Ireland.
You must learn to play.
But your bird, where does its song come from?
The song? Oh, far away. Ireland.
Which direction?
Over there. Many lefts and many rights.
Ireland. I'll go there.
For banishing the beast, Fear Not is rewarded with gold and shit, but since he still doesn't know what fear is, his quest continues. The robber decides to stick around Fear Not, now realizing that he can use him to get money due to his simple-mindedness. Their next stop is an abandoned castle, which the robber is really fearful of. He's so fearful, he literally says to Fear Not's face, "Listen, if you go in there and leave me out here with all these treasures, I'm just gonna steal them from you."
And they leave 75 of my gifts should I not return.
Do not leave them here, for you know how it is with me. I'll be forced to steal them and desert you.
Have a little courage, Mr. Mackay.
Godspeed, fear not.
But regardless, Fear Not wanders in, and oh hey look, it's Danny DeVito. This random legless fellow challenges him to a game, the most dangerous game, skeleton bowling. If he loses, he'll get Fear Not's legs. Fear Not beats him, getting a perfect strike, and is tired out from all his walking, so he lies on this random bed and goes to sleep. Except surprise, it turns out that the robber's in it, and he's dead.
So cold. You were my first and only friend. My friend, and now so cold. Let me warm you a little. That's better. See? Have I not warned you?
Surprise again, it turns out it's the Legless Man, who Fear Not knocks down some stairs and kills. Then the robber, who actually did get a little bit of courage after all, comes in to make sure Fear Not's alright.
What's the name of my true love?
Well, how can I know if you don't?
Then it is you.
But of course it's me.
And you came in to find me?
It's my lot. I try to break the mold and be decent, and I get a knife with.
Shut up and come here and hug me.
No.
Ah, but hug him he did.
Together they check out the rest of the castle and find a gigantic room full of gold. When Fear Not returns home, he and the robber part ways.
What's this for?
You must give that to your father.
That's right. For I have not learned to shudder. Goodbye, Mr. Mackay.
Goodbye, friend.
Oh, also, Fear Not's love is dying. She fell ill of a broken heart as soon as he left, and hasn't been able to be woken up by anyone or anything. Realizing he doesn't even know her name, Fear Not finally shudders with fear. A fear of losing the person he loves most of all without even truly knowing her. But since it was a broken heart that killed her, a mended heart brings her back to life.
Lydia, you've done it! Tell me what? You taught me! I've been so far, so long, and all it needed was the thought of losing you to teach me what fear was. I shuddered! I shuddered!
Now this is a pretty damn good episode. A nice little adventure, a couple of character arcs, some nice memorable moments, and some damn good practical effects. This is also a good time to bring up the music of this show, which is just incredible. Also, rather impressively, there's a new theme for basically every episode, which is kind of insane given that this is a TV show in the late 80s. The next episode is The Luck Child, another old Russian story. Once upon a time, in Russia, there was a king who was a dick and no one liked him. One day he received a prophecy. That child has been born who will one day become king instead of him. So the king did as you do at the time and go out to kill a baby. The king came and knocking on the door with intent to literally buy Luck Child from the parents.
You can't put gold to your breast. You can't hear its heartbeat.
Please yourself. You've had your chance. I'll send in men on the morrow. We'll turn the snow bloody.
We'll hand over our little boy to your safekeeping. What else can we do?
Good. Take care of him.
Instead of stabbing him or something like that, he and his assistant decide the best way to kill him is to throw him off a cliff. But luck is on the baby's side, as you'd expect.
Who said the baby died? I didn't. This is a luck child.
Oh.
No, the baby fell. Plummeting down, dropping into the blackness, the rocks beckoning. Oh, yes, plunge downwards. But the binding catches on a jutting branch and winds round, pulling the baby up short, before letting him down gently onto the shore with a plop. Sand, soft, safe.
Soon after, the king has a daughter, the only thing he ever loves more than his crown. Years later, the luck child is working in a mill when suddenly the king shows up and is pretty easily able to tell that's him.
How come the boy is fair when you two are dark?
Oh, well, I'm foundling, sire.
He was a gift from God, sire. We had no child of our own.
Found when? Found where?
By the Black Cliffs, sire, 17 years since. Washed up, without a scrap on his little body.
I see. You're a lucky one, then.
Realizing this, he decides to take him in as another plot. A bit later, Luckchild is wandering through the woods before he plops down a hole and meets this fella. He plays nice, but surprise, he's a dick too.
Marvelous.
That's it!
I'm the cook, also the poisoner, also the nastiest.
He looks through his stuff and finds a letter the king gave him.
The little man can't believe his eyes. Terrible. What a terrible letter.
This is terrible.
Wife, it says. When you read this letter, order the bearer of it, a youth named Lucky, to be chopped into 1,000 pieces. Do this without delay. King.
Now, while he may be a thief, he's at least not a murderer, so he decides to help the poor fool out.
Now he's also a forger, this little man, and full of fair play sits down to write a new letter before his sisters, wild women, get home and slit the throat of their sleeping guest.
Luckchild sets out again the next morning, only to see the princess, and boom, love. Later on, the king arrives, only to find out just how his plot had been foiled.
How?
You ordered it. Marriage, your letter said, on pain of death.
I ordered him to be chopped into 1,000 pieces.
I have the letter.
1,000 pieces, it said. I have savoured them the long journey home.
Look.
But the king thinks quickly and says that the rules of marriage say that the Luckchild has to go out and get a golden feather from the griffin. The Luckchild is a fair lad, so off he goes. Eventually, he finds a cursed ferryman, must always row forward and back from the griffin's island, never to stop. He wants to break the curse, but only the griffin truly knows how.
I shall come back.
If you do, perhaps you may discover why I must continue this weary way back and forth without ending. For I'm weary and sick to the soul.
I'll remember.
Of all people, the thief appears, being taken captive by the griffin. Still with a golden heart, he agrees to help the Luckchild in his holy shit! This is probably the peak of the effects in the show. Just look at this. This isn't just a full-body costume. This is a massive puppet with blinking eyes, all these feathers, fully articulated wings, and it moves pretty good too. The lake monster may have been neat, but this is incredibly impressive. The thief does as he promised and manages to rip a golden feather from the griffin. He even manages to figure out how the ferryman's curse works.
I wonder why he's always there. Why can't he leave?
His curse do worse than stay the same. Lest someone take pole, then someone curse the same way as him. Simple.
So if someone took his pole, they'd have to row and he'd be free? Oh, so simple.
And with that, the Luckchild runs off with a couple of the griffin's treasures. He also tells the ferryman how to get out of his curse.
So simple. So simple.
And for the first time in years, centuries, hope fires the ferryman. A smile is forming in his mind, a tiny smile growing, getting ready to be born.
When Luckchild gets back, he tells the king where he got them, and the king gets all greedy and decides to go off to get more treasure himself.
Come on, come on, come on. Can't we go any faster?
Oh, yes, sir. There is a way.
Take it, he says. Take it. Take it. So if you come one day to a lake and there's an island, and a ferry goes back and forth, rowed by an old sad man. Turn around. Griffins live there. You may never get off the boat.
This was a pretty nice episode, and the Griffin costume was outstanding, but it does feel a little unfinished. Like, the evil Griffin just kinda lives on, and the thief friend is just cursed forever to live with him. I mean, I get it, killing the Griffin is out of the way and not really needed, but it still makes the story feel a bit incomplete. Regardless, on to the next episode. A Story Short is potentially the most unique episode in the series. Unlike the other stories, this is a, quote, true story. In the events of the show, I mean. As it's a story about the storyteller himself. I could see this being a cool seasonal event if the show ever got renewed. Like, every season there'd be a new story about what the storyteller did before ending up in this cozy little area. I do have a problem with this episode, but we'll get to that in a bit. Once upon a time, the storyteller was a simple beggar wandering through the land. One day he ends up outside of a kitchen and tries to convince the chef to let him make a soup out of a stone.
Stone soup?
Delicious.
I'm not a fool. You can't make soup out of a stone.
He's then like, oh, this could use a bit of salt, and then, oh, you know, this could use some potatoes, and on until he's made a soup out of basically everything in the kitchen. After a nice meal, the cook finds out he's been had and drags him in front of the king. He tells him he's a storyteller, so the king decides to punish him to a year of storytelling.
But of course, if you should run out of stories, I will hand you over to the cook and his boiling oil.
The storyteller had a marvelous life, living in a castle, telling a story a day, finding a wife, honestly a pretty good deal. But on the last day, he can't think of a story. He runs across an old friend and they decide to gamble a bit.
I know, I shouldn't have, but the gold sparkled. I should have said no, but the gold glittered. The morning frittered away my fortune with it. Well, that's it. I have no story and I have no money.
Then the guy's like, alright, now bet your wife against my money. And the storyteller's like, what? No, that's kinda fucked up, dude. And the wife's like, nah, do it, it'll be fine. Then he loses. And surprise, turns out the wife already liked the guy.
What's this?
He is now my husband, sir. And I needs must love him.
Then I am broken.
Then the other guy's like, alright, now bet yourself. Defeated, the storyteller just kinda does it, and boom, the guy wins. To which he turns the storyteller into a rabbit. Just cause this guy's a dick, I guess. Then his wife turns out to also be a dick, and turns him into a flea.
Nice. I can be popped between the fingers. Thank you. If you itch, you can think of me.
The wizard, as I'm going to call him, walks into the kitchen, decides to do a bit more magic devilry to the cook. He magically takes the cook apart, which is actually kind of horrifying the way he does it. Then the wizard goes into the king's court and fucks around a little. He traps the prince on top of a magic rope by turning it into a ladder and luring him up with a ball. The king grabs the wizard, the storyteller still a flea on his back, and they drop the guy in boiling oil. But he pops up perfectly fine. The cook dips his hand in the oil, and his fingers are back. Then the prince just kinda hops out of the oil.
But what about you? Where were you?
Where was I indeed? No longer a flea, no longer anything. Here I am above the palace, swirling, an element, nothing more. And then a sudden drop, hurtling down, and the ground rushing up towards me. Oh! I've been dreaming.
It was all a dream. Yeah, really. The storyteller decides to tell his dream as a story. Once you know it, it works. Everyone loves it, the wizard goes off on his way, and the storyteller's job is finished. The end. Oh, and for the storyteller's wife,
she was so taken by his magic, she set off in search of him. I never saw her to this day.
Anyways, it's a fine episode, but it's a bit meandering. While it's no slouch on effects, I kinda get the feeling this was a bottle episode. Something that they made because they kinda blew their budget and needed something cheap to put out. It's at about this point in editing when I realized something. I've been working on this video for over 2 months now, and I recently realized that, for some reason, there was a lack of passion here. I was just doing this to get the video done. I realized I needed to clear my head, so I got dressed in my warmest clothes, made myself some hot chocolate, and went out into the cold winter night. My mind wandered as I did. I knew I still liked the series, I still wanted people to watch it, and I still wanted to get this video done, but why was I just feeling disinterested in getting the work done? Then a realization hit me, as cold and harsh as the very snow around me.
The whole point of the video is going against the video itself. And what I mean by that is that I'm making this video with the intent of getting you, the viewer, to watch The Storyteller. But if I review every single episode of The Storyteller, you're not going to want to go out to watch it because you already know all of the stories. It just... So even though it may seem anticlimactic, this is where it stops. Ryan, that's your cue. Ryan, turn the camera.
So, yeah, this is the end of the video now. I can't in good faith review the rest of the series. To sound cheesy, it would just ruin the magic. I can't even do my original ending for the video where I rank all of the episodes because, again, I want to encourage you guys to go out and watch The Storyteller. I want you to discover the wonder of the series by yourself without me having to tell you much more about it. So, I won't spoil any more episodes or anything like that. Go on, find it on Amazon Prime or archive.org. Watch the series, listen to the music, see the amazing effects, and enjoy your time with it. At the end of the day, that's what I want to see. I'm Sir Strongman, and that was the thing. Special thanks to my roommate for helping me film me getting dressed.
Oh, yeah.
And to my friend Ryan for going out into literal freezing temperatures twice to help me film those shots of me outside. Go to his channel, DM told me to, link in the iCard. Watch his most recent video, like it, and leave a comment saying, "Hey Ryan, why don't you do a Let's Play of Pokemon Legends Arceus? It looks so good." Winky emoji.